This is a Japan many thought had disappeared 70 years ago. But as the balance of power in Asia swings inexorably towards China, Japan is responding. Embracing long-dormant nationalism, rearming, and training for war. For years, Japan has been steadily building one of the most modern and powerful naval forces anywhere in the world. And now the Japanese government wants to go further, to make it bigger, more powerful, and to free it from the shackles of a pacifist constitution. It's 6:30 in the morning at Japan's Naval Academy. These young recruits will be the Navy commanders of tomorrow. Japan's constitution bans them from going to war. But these cadets are not training for peacekeeping.
We train every day for war. We are taught to think in a warlike way.
While Britain's Royal Navy has 6 modern destroyers, Japan has 26. Its military commanders are preparing to fight a war at sea, and this is why. This Chinese boat is deep inside Japanese-controlled waters and refusing to stop. Last year, Japan scrambled fighter jets 267 times to intercept incoming Chinese aircraft. China is aggressively pursuing its territorial claims on islands around Japan. This increasingly tense atmosphere is providing the space for Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to move the country sharply to the right.
On the one hand, you can point to a definite expansionist tendencies of the Chinese government, but you could say that Abe, in particular on the Japanese side, has added fuel to the fire by bringing back the history issues. He basically takes the view that Japan did nothing particularly wrong during the Second World War.
Shinzo Abe's political career is driven by restoring pride in Japan's identity. To do so, he believes Japan must overturn its sense of shame about World War II. That is why Mr. Abe went to the Yasukuni Shrine, a place that enshrines the spirits of Japan's top war criminals. Mr. Abe doesn't believe they were criminals.
Modernizing the Japanese military on the one hand, and basically, providing a revisionist history view are basically inseparable. He thinks that by selling out and by accepting the conventional view of history, Japan would be perpetually emasculated and vulnerable to Chinese attacks.
The Yasukuni Shrine is the spiritual home of Japanese nationalism. It celebrates the strong Japan Mr. Abe yearns to bring back. It drives his plan to put the emperor back on the throne as the head of state. It's why he's pushing new school textbooks that leave out Japan's wartime atrocities. And crucially, it's why Mr. Abe's government is determined to scrap the hated peace constitution. Nobuo Kishi is very close to Shinzo Abe. He's his brother.
Japan wants to act like a normal country under international law. We will not start a war. We are a peaceful country. But all countries have a right to self-defense. That's why we want to reinterpret the constitution.
Changing the constitution requires a 2/3 majority in parliament, and that's very difficult. That's why the government now talks of reinterpreting it. But whether it's revised or reinterpreted, the aim is to deal with China.
China is trying to change the status quo by force and coercion. We will never escalate tension, but in our response to this situation, we will be resolute in our actions.
The islands of Okinawa are Japan's closest point to China and the hub of American air power in the Pacific. Japanese schoolchildren gather to snap its most modern fighter jets as they head out over the East China Sea. For 70 years, Japan has embraced US military protection and US-imposed pacifism. These schoolchildren are now at the centre of a fight over what sort of relationship Japan will have with its military and what future Japan will embrace. Kunio Uehara teaches children on the island. Like many Japanese, he remains deeply suspicious of any move back towards militarism.
Ever since World War II, Japan has embraced a Western idea of individualism and human rights. Now Abe wants to take us back to an older version of Japan, like before the war, like Imperial Japan.
It is in Japan's schools that Mr. Abe and the right are seeking to reclaim Japan's history. Schools like this one have been ordered to use a new government-approved history text, which portrays Japan as liberating Asia from European imperialism. But it whitewashes Japan's World War II atrocities. These children are not using it. Mr. Uehara and his fellow teachers are resisting.
They are stirring up nationalism, stirring up feelings against China, saying that's why we need a strong military. They want to use the textbooks to condition our children to the idea of a strong military.
The rumblings of nationalism can already be heard. In recent weeks, we've seen public figures in Japan openly expressing opinions that were once the preserve of the far right. Denying the Nanjing massacre, denying Japanese troops used Korean and Chinese sex slaves during World War II, denying that Japan was the aggressor.
By having a leader with very clear revisionist view of history, you also encourage more people like him to get the spotlight and have a great influence in the Japanese society. And so it can possibly unleash a series of events or developments that can eventually lead to a dangerous situation. It's not because Abe is determined to cause a war with China, but the kind of thing that he's doing can provoke China into a combat situation.
The language of all the players is becoming more belligerent. China continues to aggressively push its claim to islands around Japan. Mr. Abe has warned the situation in the East China Sea is now like Britain and Germany in 1914, and a US intelligence chief has accused China of preparing for a short war to grab those islands from Japan.
The Japanese government has decided that it is now time to stand up to China, that Japan will no longer sit by and watch China dominate this region. That means abandoning 70 years of pacifism, and it means Japan acquiring the military capability to take China on.
Many believe it is time for Japan to become a normal country with a normal military. But by turning to nationalism, the Abe government risks inflaming tensions with both allies and rivals. And the biggest danger of all comes from that most incendiary of weapons, history.